Hello, my Nevermore Hollow psychos. This is Lafayette Faust. Recently, Madman, John Fike, and I were asked to participate in a discussion about Friday the 13th, Part 3, on a podcast called Remember That. And we went on there, and we had a great time. And we're going to post that video this week on our feed so you can listen to the conversation. And hopefully you guys will like what you hear from the guys that Remember That, Corky and Daniel, and that you'll go over, give their YouTube show a listen and a subscribe and a like, and check out their podcast and give them 5 stars and all that other stuff. And on that note, if you're so inclined and you want to support Nevermore Hollows, you can buy us a coffee. The link will be in the show notes, or you can join our Patreon. We have a lot of stuff on Patreon right now that isn't out there for everybody else to listen to, and I think you'll like it. So the links are in the show notes to the Remember That episode, and to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, and Drunken Cryptids, and Patreon, and buy us a coffee. And with that, I hope that you enjoy this conversation.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Now, when it comes to killing in Jason's woods, Jason will come to you. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. A new dimension in terror. It will scare you. Count on it.
Tonight, we're going to continue our summer campfire series with Friday the 13th, Part 3. We're going to be joined by Chris and Alan from Nevermore Hollows and John and Tony from Myth, Monsters, and Mullets. Make sure and check those 2 shows out. They're awesome. But for now, grab your 3D glasses and let's kick back and get at it.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. We got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember.
This week, we're doing Friday the 13th, Part 3. Cade is on vacation this week, so we decided we'd invite a few friends over to join us this week. We've got Alan and Chris from Nevermore Hollows and John and Tony from Myth, Monsters, and Mullets. Guys, we appreciate you joining us tonight.
What's going on?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'll go ahead and kick this thing off. Friday the 13th, Part 3 is a 1982 American slasher film directed by Steve Miner, produced by Frank Mancuso Jr., and starring Dana Kimmel, Paul Kotrika, and Richard Brooker as Jason. It's the sequel to Friday the 13th, Part 2, and the third installment of the Friday the 13th franchise. It's set directly after the events of the previous films. The plot follows Chris Higgins, a teenage girl, and her friends who go on a trip to a house near Crystal Lake. An injured Jason Voorhees has taken refuge at the house and decides to go on another killing spree, basically. So one of the things I want to start talking about this movie is a lot of people have a problem with the fact that it's not taking place in a actual camp. But if you think about it, you can't have everything taking place at Camp Crystal Lake because people are going to quit going to it after so many people's got killed. You know what I'm saying? So,
After the second movie, I probably wouldn't go back.
And I think all these movies take place basically around consecutive days, if I'm not mistaken. So, you get a lot of things from this movie. Obviously, you get the iconic hockey mask, which, he takes on with him forever. But, you also get his coveted, green shirt and kind of gray pants he gets from the little store there at the first. So,
Yep.
I think the movie had to move away from the camps because you can't keep opening up a camp every year and people keep getting killed every year. You're not going to get anybody to come. So, one of the things I've listened to other podcasts and they talk about this movie, and everybody's always complaining it's not at a camp, but this movie takes place, it's kind of like the lakes around here. There are houses and stuff around these lakes. So, we're still at Crystal Lake. It's just around Crystal Lake. We're just not at the camp. So, Alan, I'll just let you kick it off, man. What's your first impression on this 3D masterpiece?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I watched it back in October, and I don't know, maybe I was in a different headspace, but I was like, it's boring. How did this ever go beyond number 3? Even though it does show some of the evolution of Jason with the hockey mask and all that. I rewatched it last night just to kind of, see what do I think about it now? And I was like, what was I thinking in October? It's a good story. It's got some good kill scenes in it. It feels like it's in the same universe as the first two, because sometimes you get the continuity gets wonky, right? But if I will end my early assessment here, dovetailing something off what Corky said, one of the things that I can appreciate is that they were trying to move away from the actual camp a little bit.
Yeah.
One of my problems, I love Star Wars, but one of my problems with Star Wars is every freaking movie revolves around the Death Star.
Yeah.
You got to do something different. Do something different. And early on as creators, we all have some sort of side gig where we create. If you don't early on in your universe say, this can happen, meaning we're going to move away from Camp Crystal Lake, then you get that criticism of going, well, it's not Camp Crystal Lake. So I feel like by movie 3 with them establishing that it could happen anywhere, it sets up even the craziness of like Jason takes New York and Jason in space. But anyway, so I'll say this. I was shocked that I didn't like it in October when I watched it again last night.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of us here tonight, guys, and I want everybody to get their own 2 cents in, so feel free to just, what did you think about the movie? That's how we'll start it out, man. What did everybody think about the movie? And we'll just go around the horn here. John, how about you, buddy?
I am probably going to make some people mad. I know, shocker.
Do it. Please make people mad.
When Alan told me what movie we were watching, I hadn't watched this movie in probably 20 years. And I was like, I remember this thing being a turd. And I watched it again last night. It's a turd. I'm sorry. Like, I think to me, they spent their entire budget on the 3D thing. Exactly. And to me, the story and the rest of the special effects suffered because of it. That's my opinion.
A lot of people say that.
The one thing I will say is, I think the thing that saves the movie is the hockey mask.
Oh,
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, if you took away the hockey mask, it would have been much worse, I believe. That's just my opinion. Yeah. So it is the beginning of the hockey mask, and it is, like you mentioned earlier, it is the beginning of the look, the gray pants and the shirt. And I've always liked it. 3 and 4 are my favorite out of the whole franchise. 3 and 4 are mine. I love it.
Yeah, and see, that's why I'm confused why I felt that I liked it so much better last night, because when I watched it in October, I was like, I even told my son, I was like, this movie's crap. I don't understand why people hold it so highly, other than maybe it was the hockey mask. But again, last night, I watched it and I had fun.
Well, you say that, Alan, and I can completely understand, because I started watching these things at a very young age. And part 3 for me always fell flat, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was trying to be 3D. I didn't see it in the theater when it was 3D, so you've got that 2D / 3D kind of look that they've got going, And so I started missing the smaller details of what I actually started liking about it. When I was a kid, I was just like, we're going to skip this one. And the details that we're pulling out at this point, it did get away from Camp Crystal Lake, and it still did all right as far as being on the lake, just like what Corky said. They've still got houses and stuff there. You've got the iconic hockey mask introduction. You've got the whole look, the green shirt with the gray pants. So there's a lot of stuff that I really took for granted whenever I was watching this at a young age because, Alan, you had already mentioned it once before, they do have some really good kills in it. They got muted a little bit because of the 3D thing, but the kills were still pretty good. One thing that I also noticed and really started liking was the fact that this main character now has a backstory. So, you know, Alice in Friday the 13th Part 1 didn't have much of a backstory. Then you've got the girl in Part 2. It said that she was, like, taking some psychological classes and stuff, and that's how she ended up, you know, fighting Jason the first time.
Yeah.
And so you move into this one. This girl actually has a legit backstory at this point. The lead character in this, she actually had a run-in with Jason in the woods. I think they said like 2 years prior to this movie. So it's little things like that I started pulling out from this movie, and I really started to appreciate it more. And Tony, just like what you were talking about, you know, if you would have asked me 20, 25 years ago, I would have said that parts 4 and part 6 were my favorite. And they're still really, really good. But man, I really, really like part 3 at this point. And I mean, I know that I'm not, you know, always the most popular opinion or whatever, but it's little things like that I started pulling out of it. And I was like, you know, I can dissect this a little bit more. I can get a little bit more out of this. So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, you know, a lot of people have a problem with Chris's whole backstory. You know, she's supposed to have been attacked in the woods a couple years before, and then that's why she doesn't want to come back to, I guess, I'm taking it this was their summer home. Because everybody, I mean, that's kind of what I figured. Because a lot of people are like, well, you know, what's this? What do you mean? Did she just move away? I take it this is their summer house on the lake.
You
and
said
she was
that
probably.
You said that her last name was Higgins, right?
Yes.
So, okay,
it's
so
Higgins Haven. So
it's Higgins Haven is the name of the like cabin or whatever. So I guess it probably is like a summer home or something.
Yeah, but you would not believe the people that just, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it makes totally sense. It was their summer home. She was probably out, you know, I reckon she got into it with her mom, and her mom slaps her, so she runs off in the woods. Jason attacks her, does whatever. But, you know, what a lot of people have a problem with is she wakes up in the bed. But one of the things they done, Jason, I think there was supposed to be like a you know, like a rape or something like that happened, and they cut that out because they didn't want to go there with it. So, you know, that you have her just waking up in her bedroom not knowing what happened. And a lot of people have a problem with that, but I just don't have a problem with that because, you know, some things you just don't want to put on TV and you don't want to go there in a, you know, 80s slasher movie, you know. But that's one of the things they cut out was she was actually supposed to be sexually assaulted in the woods, but they cut that part out and just had Jason just attack her. But what it is, I guess she's got some PTSD from that attack. Hadn't been back in a couple of years, and this is her first trip back, trying to face her fears and stuff like that. And this is what happens, you know. But guys, the movie starts out, of course, at the store, and the guy's eating his own food and putting it back on the shelf, which is just crazy. Then he goes to the bathroom and jumps up and doesn't wipe his butt, which kills me.
Yes.
You know, jumps out at you. You can clearly see the wire hooked to the snake. But, you know, they said they had to take these shots like 50 and 60 times a piece just to get that stuff exactly right because, you know, like you guys said earlier, they spent all this money on this 3D aspect. And I think while this is one of my favorite movies of the franchise, I really do believe that hurt it because they basically concentrated on that 3D aspect just a little too much. And I've never seen the movie in 3D. I heard if you watch it in 3D, you don't see the lines and stuff like that, but I've never seen that. I would like to see it in 3D.
I even noticed last night scare of the duck. There's a wire there. You can see the wire with the duck.
Remember when the
wire
chick
also
gets
on like the eyeball?
Yes.
Yeah, and the most iconic scene is when Jason steps out with the mask on there at the, you know, when the chick's in the water holding up the wallet and he shoots her in the eye. You can watch that thing follow that line plumb down to her face. Believe it. They say if you actually watch it in 3D, you can't see any of that. So I think watching it in 2D makes the movie a lot more clear.
I can only imagine watching that in 3D, especially in 1982. I mean, imagine that. That would be pretty crazy.
They were talking about that in the documentary that I watched on this, talking about how difficult of a scene that was to set up with the arrow and to get it on that line and all that.
Well, I saw it in the theaters when it came out in '82, and I don't remember us ever bashing it for the lines. So I can't recall ever seeing the lines.
Well, I mean,
Do you know?
if you're going to go to the movies and you're going to see that, it's because you're not going to see an Academy Award winning movie. You know what I mean? You're going to see,
What?
you know what you're getting.
Are
It's
you,
something
sir?
like, especially like back then on a practical effect, because I'm so big into practical effects. Like I love the
Yes.
CGI and I love the things that we can do with the technology, but man, Tom Savini is a master at special effects. I'm a huge Tom Savini fan.
Yeah, he's cool, dude.
And look, dude still looks good at 78 years old too. Let's just put that out there right now.
Yeah, I saw an interview with him recently. He's kind of buff.
Yeah,
For
man.
a
Yeah.
old dude.
I hope I look like that at 78. That's what I'm saying. But
I'll probably look like one of his creations at 78.
man. So where was we at? So we go through the whole, store scene. Basically, Jason's going to ditch his overalls and pick up his new clothes he's wearing and all that good stuff. But, then we get in this cool van we're going to pick up. I think it's Vera's her name. Yeah, we go
and
pick up Vera. She gets into an argument with her mom and all that good stuff. And then
Yeah,
Shelley
I thought it
comes
was
out.
funny. Vera Sanchez, but her real name's Catherine Parks.
Yeah. I've got Vera, Shelley's girl, wrote down here in my notes.
Yeah. What cultural appropriation? How did that movie ever get made?
I'm telling you, man. So, at this point in time, we're introduced to the character of Shelley. Now, what did you guys think of Shelley, man? I started off feeling sorry for Shelley, but then he just become a straight up dick, in my opinion. But what's everybody's take on Shelley?
I never did like Shelley.
Shelley
I didn't
was
like
kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, and I like how they play the scary music every time. Just like the first scene, he's walking up with the knife and the scary music.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's not going to be the villain of this movie. That didn't trick anybody. And that guy was just annoying pretty much the whole movie to me.
Well, that just meant that Shelley was going to die hard.
Yes, that's true.
I will say one of the best special effects was the axe he had in his head that he made himself.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And what got me is it was, midnight, and he's swimming around in that nasty-ass river.
That's
In a wetsuit.
what does that
spear
thing?
gun?
And
What
in
the
this
heck?
creek, man, golly bum, that was nasty. And of course, I mean, going back to I get it. He tried to do the comedy thing to get the girl, and it didn't work.
But if it don't
right?
work the first time, you better stop,
that's
dude.
that's what I'm
because it ain't
saying.
gonna
That's what
work
I'm
for
saying.
you.
So he finally gets her in the living room, okay, and she was like, "Look, man, just stop, just chill out.
Yeah.
I will come back. Give me 10 minutes on my own, and I will come back and I will talk to you like a regular human being." And what does he do? As soon as she walks out, he turns around and he's like, "Bitch, come on, man. Like, dude, wake up."
At that point, I lost all respect for Shelley because I'm like, dude, she's offering to come back in here and talk to you, dude.
Yeah.
And you going to call her a bee right out the gate, man? Then he's like, okay, she's going to come back in here and talk to me. So I'm going to go get a wetsuit on and a spear gun. And I'm going to try to scare her again because, that works so well, And then where did he hide the spear gun at? That wouldn't fit in that little tackle box
That
he
wasn't-
had.
he just had a 2x2 box.
He had a wetsuit, a spear gun, and a hockey mask, and no luggage. It makes no sense,
You got to love the continuity errors. You got to love
But
them.
whatever, I wasn't there. I didn't make the movie. She took one in the eyeball for him. I'll say that.
That was I will have to say, for me, that was the coolest kill on there, because I remember watching that when I was a kid, and I seen the arrow come through, and I was like, man, that's awesome. That's I always liked that one.
Well, guys, let me backtrack a little bit because I meant to talk about this before we started talking about Shelley. But you have Chris that's going back to her summer home to face this PTSD she's gotten from this attack she got. On their way up there, they passed the store where Jason has just killed, the lady and the man there. And she looks up there, and they're rolling their bodies out of the store, putting them in an ambulance. All right, there's flag number one. Then they roll up on this guy that's laying in the road, and he stands up and hands him an eyeball and says, "I have warned thee," and all this other stuff. At this point, maybe you don't need to go back up there, because
that crap happens to me every day going to work. I have warned thee, stay away.
And that was a fresh eyeball too.
Yeah, man, he hands me an eyeball
up there.
I'm like, come on, man.
So that was another thing that stood out to me. When you go back and watch this movie, you're like, man, if she was really afraid to go back there, seeing where two people had just got murdered up the road, and then as a guy hands you an eyeball in the middle of the road, probably need to go back home and think it out over the weekend. You know what I'm saying?
And also, she was trying to get back with her sugar daddy Rick, who looked like he was pushing 40 at the time.
Yeah, I said that to my wife while we were watching it. I was like, because she was saying, my parents didn't like you or whatever. And I was like, yes, because she's 35.
I mean, I understand. Here's your next red flag, Corky, is I understand that we're in the early 80s and we don't have the internet yet and not everything is just broadcast immediate. But back then, it was already broadcast on the local channels, on the news channel, about the attacks of the previous days. So, they've had to have heard this on the radio at some point or other, talking about these attacks and these murders. And then you drive by the store and they're unloading the dead bodies out of the store. That's my weekend right there. I'm like, I'm done. Take me home. I don't want to go get killed with you guys
this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to look at it from Jason's point of view. Okay. He's out living in the woods, has his mom's head up there as a shrine. And then these damn kids keep coming in, messing with his crap. So he goes to another house to get some R&R. And then these damn kids keep coming back. So, if you look at it from his point of view, he just, he just wants him off his lawn.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and I'll say this too, as we were looking at how all this was an evolution, in the first one it was about a mom's grief. The second one it was about the revenge of the son, right? Yeah. The third one is where the campiness started creeping in, because like the punks, when they show up,
biker gang.
They were so cheesy. And, there was some other, Shelley was part of the camp that was, coming into all that. And, of course, there was a couple of times there was some 80s music there. 80s music makes everything sound campy.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I'll say this, that nobody talks nobody talks about this though. Jason, he killed a pregnant chick.
Yeah.
He
did.
Yeah,
he did. Straight up Kevin Bacon her too.
Yes.
The same kill, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason
100%.
shows no love. But talking about the biker gang, man, we totally passed that whole scene up too. Before Shelley was a dick to Vera, at the cabin that night, she actually took him to town with her to go buy. I forget what she was going to go buy. But you guys notice when she's up there trying to pay for whatever it was buying, she couldn't have no money. She didn't have any money. And the cashier looks at her and says, "We don't take no food stamps." I'm like, what makes you think I've got food stamps, dude? Really? Did she look like somebody had food stamps? And then,
she was dressed better than the cashier.
Money.
That's what I'm saying.
But then,
probably the age.
But then Shelley comes in with the iconic, "I'm going to toss you my wallet" right in the camera's face, for 3D effect.
Yeah, because it's 3D.
That was something else that they said that they spent way too much time on trying to get that exactly right. I don't know exactly how many takes
it took them.
But it was
56
stupid.
takes.
56. See, I mean, they're going to sit there and toss a Velcro wallet, 56 times to try to get this shot right, just for the 3D effect. I mean,
which didn't work. Let's just be honest about that right now. So I think she drops the wallet. Then Fox comes there and picks it up, starts going through it because, that's how, people acted back in the 80s. They would just rob you blind. And she pulls out Shelley's rubber he had stashed in there, and she looks at her and she goes, "Is this your rubber?" But that whole situation. Then Shelley goes out and runs over their bikes and all that stuff. Man, that was just a crazy scene. But I always thought it was funny that she looks at her and asks her, said, "Hey, we don't take no food stamps in here," because she looked like she had food stamps, I guess. But anyhow,
other part of that was whenever Shelley backs over the bikes to begin with. And so
In a Volkswagen.
And I can't think of what that guy's name is, but he throws his beer down and then he gets his chain and he wraps his chain up around his hands and then he steps in front of a moving car and does this right here with the chain. Like, all right, this is happening. I always thought that was funny too.
Yeah, then he busts the window. And then what's funny,
the plate glass front windshield.
Yeah, they go back to the cabin or the house or whatever it is, and that was Rick's car they borrowed, and they just go back to Rick and say, "Hey man, sorry, it's got a little damage to it." Hand him the keys and just keep walking. Somebody needs to come back and fix this window out here. You know what I'm saying?
Beat the crap out of Shelley.
Yeah. So that he
tries to explain it with a horror movie mask on. He's like miming, someone beat me up. Okay, Shelley.
Yeah. So we've made it about to the middle of the movie. Usually about this time we do our little trivia run. Daniel, are you ready to do trivia for us tonight, buddy?
Yeah, man, I got some trivia for you. So
you got a big audience tonight, so let's see if we can actually win this
really
trivia.
big audience. So the way that we run trivia normally is I'll just ask a question and then we'll say our name if we know it. So if you know it, you say your name, and if I try to be fair about it and try to pick the first person that said their name. But anyway, for trivia tonight, we'll start off with an easy one. Okay, so number one, who did Jason get his iconic hockey mask from?
Tony.
Yeah, everybody at the same time. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony. I'll pass it off to you, buddy.
That'd be Shelley, wouldn't it?
That would be
yes,
Shelley.
Sir.
Tony strikes first blood. All right. Question number 2. What is the total kill count on this movie?
Are we counting the unborn baby?
I didn't, and the internet didn't. So I asked the internet first, and then I rewatched the movie and recounted myself. So that is not counting the unborn child.
That would have been a good twist to the question there, though. You know what I'm saying?
That's pretty good. Alan's thinking. He's thinking.
Brent,
go.
Is it 7?
No.
I think it's 12.
You are right, John. 12.
12 people?
Look at John.
God.
Yeah. See, and that's something that I thought was funny, too, because I've watched this movie probably 20 times in my life, and I would have never thought 12. Just, even
I was
to count
thinking
through
7
it.
myself.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot about the bikers. That's who I forgot about.
All right, so question number 3. How many victims did the TV say there were from the previous night? This is at the very first of the movie.
Yeah.
I almost wrote that down. Wrote it down. I'm going to say 15.
14?
No, because we're not going with the actual kill count from the second movie. We're just going with what the television reported in the first of this movie.
Okay.
I don't even remember that scene. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet.
It was the chick and her husband at the place. The very first of the movie. Very first of the movie. But she was listening. She was watching TV.
Scene. Okay.
Yeah. She was watching TV. So anyway,
I don't remember.
I'm gonna we'll say no points for this question. The number is 8.
I was really going to guess 8. I promise.
The TV reported out 8. All right. So anyway, question number 4. What was the name of the first victim in this movie?
I meant to write that down.
Harold.
Yeah.
Alan comes in with it.
Yeah.
All right. So we got John, Tony, and Alan got a point apiece. And we've got 2 more questions to go.
Hey.
So number 5. This should be easy enough if you've seen the movie recently. What color was the van and what color was the bug?
Bug was
Yellow
yellow.
and silver.
Brent,
Go, Brent.
blue van, yellow bug.
All right. Blue van, yellow bug. I did hear some blues come up. I didn't hear names, though.
Yeah,
So
we
we'll give
got
Brent the
excited
point
on
on
that
that one. All right. Now, here's the tricky one. You had to really be paying attention to get this one. All right, so number 6, last question. What bumper sticker is on the back of the van?
My God, really?
So look, on the front, it's a ski Utah or something, and I don't remember the one on the back.
Well, there's actually 2 that's on the back, but the one on the left side of the bumper is kind of illegible. I couldn't read it real good, but the
Brent?
the one. All right, Brent, go ahead.
Is it USA?
No, you're close though. You're actually pretty close.
America.
No, you're getting colder.
Dang, really?
I love New Jersey.
Well, all right. So the answer,
USM.
we'll say no points for this one. The answer is Springsteen, the boss.
Oh, my God.
It says Springsteen,
Hate
the boss,
Springsteen.
and it was on kind of on the left-hand side of the bumper.
That's probably why I don't remember it. I hate Bruce Springsteen so bad that my mind wiped it clean.
Yeah, that's probably why I didn't even see the sticker, man. Lord.
Well,
right.
So maybe I just went too hard with the questions tonight. I'm sorry, did what?
Alan should get like a quarter of a point because he said, I love New Jersey.
Yeah, we'll give him Alan. All right, guys, this is a good. Go ahead, Daniel.
Go ahead.
I was just going to segue into the guess the kill scene, but if you got something else to add,
Yeah, let's do it. I think that Alan wins the trivia for tonight with a 1 1/4 points.
Okay.
I would like to thank everybody in attendance for allowing me to have such a wonderful honor. I'm going to celebrate by eating a juicy, juicy pea.
Man, that's
it never
awesome.
gets old.
I'm gonna have not more nightmares about that than I will the movie.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll segue into my coveted guess the kill scene. So I'm going to play this scene, then you guys can tell me who do you think it is getting killed. All right, what do you guys think it was? Who was it? Go around. Everybody gets a guess.
I'm going to say the eyeballs. He gets his head squished, his eyes come out.
Rick? Okay.
Rick. I keep wanting to call him Paul for some reason, but Paul was in the second one.
Paul was in part 2, yeah. Who?
I can't remember anybody's names other than Shelley because that's the
Chili.
So we got Rick, Chili. John, what you got, buddy?
It was a guy doing the handstand while she was.
Yeah, that was the jock guy. Andy
Andy
was his name, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
All right, Chris, you got Andy too?
Yeah.
All right, Daniel?
I thought Chili.
Chili. All right, Brent?
I had no idea. I was going to say the woman in the shower.
Well, you're close. She can be heard at the end of the scene, but that was Andy getting chopped in half.
Man.
Out in the hallway. So if you guessed Andy, you got it right. Good job with it.
Good ears, man.
John Methencamp.
Yeah.
John Methencamp.
I never thought anybody would guess Chili, man. She took it the hot poker in the stomach, man.
Yeah.
And
see, I was thinking that the other girl, she ended up being a news anchor in California, I think. I can't remember what her
was that Vera?
name is. No, it was the one that played the chick that was pregnant. Got the knife to the neck.
Debbie.
She ended up being a news anchor in California in the late 80s, I think.
Yeah, she actually done a lot of work on the OJ case from what I remember.
Really?
She broke a lot of the OJ case, yeah. Yeah, that was
her
cool.
brother. I may be wrong, but was her brother the floating vampire in Salem's Lot? Ben Savage, I believe, was his name.
Tracy Savage. So yeah, it could be. It could be.
Yeah,
I think it was her. That's her brother in real life. I mean,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, Tracy Savage is the one that was the reporter. So yeah, that's cool.
All right, guys. So, Jason's basically hiding out in the barn all day, kills all the bikers. So now you've got he's coming after Chris. So what do you guys take on this final girl scene? How do you think Chris stacked up against Jason?
Well, she's the one that caused him the most amount of damage, that's for sure. other than right there at the very end of part 2, whenever he takes a machete in the shoulder, beforehand, he hadn't taken any damage that I can remember. He got chased around with the chainsaw.
I was going to ask you guys this. Was this the weakest we've seen Jason in any movie?
Well,
I mean, he was getting pushed. He was getting pushed around. He got pushed through a like a porch.
Well, you got to remember this is human Jason. He doesn't become zombie Jason until part 6. So human Jason
a lot of people don't understand that.
Weaker.
A lot of, I can't tell you how many people in the forums and stuff I've read are like, why is Jason grunting in this one? And why is he doing it? I'm like, because he's not dead yet. He still can feel pain, I mean, Tommy hadn't. So
he just got some new clothes. He didn't want to get them dirty.
Yeah. You take a machete in between your fingers and you tell me if you're going to grunt or.
Yeah, but I mean, when girl knocks him down in the top of the barn and she hangs him and he drops, you would think that would have snapped his neck or something.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, he took.
Good point, John. That's a good point, because he did have a freaking thick neck, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
So he hadn't bled out yet, and he took that machete to the shoulder at the end of part 2.
Yeah.
Which would have killed pretty much anybody. He hadn't bled out yet.
He at least had a broke collarbone during this movie, so he might have been wore down a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
And then, like, as soon as if it's me, if I get chopped in the head with an axe, I'm going down. I'm not gonna throw my arms out. I'm not gonna keep coming.
Don't pass up the hanging scene, because I will say, as cheesy as it sounds, that was kind of scary when she opens the door and he's just hanging there.
Yeah, that hanging scene was bad, because they actually show him drop and the rope catches him and it's like snap, and that was a cool scene, man. I enjoyed that scene. And then he's hanging there as soon as she opens the door and then he reaches for her. Yeah, that was a good scene.
When he pulls himself up and then lifts his mask and like smiles and winks at her or whatever, that's pretty freaky.
I work with people that
I was
look
thinking,
like that.
oh my gosh. Oh, you beat me to it. I was going to say it reminded me of Chris's baby picture.
Well, so one of the first things that he did when he went to that little store before he killed those people was he bought a razor, because he had a red beard and red long hair in part 2, and in this one he's completely bald. And he ended up with the mongoloid looking head, and he did not look like that in part 2. He's tried to groom himself up a little bit.
What they done, I actually have an answer for this comment. What they done is, I forget who done the special effects in this movie, but they actually based him off of the little boy in part 1 that come out of the lake and grabbed.
Well, that makes sense.
So if you'll think about him, he does kind of look like an older version of that little boy that come out of the lake. Why they decided to take away the red-haired hillbilly guy, I don't know, but they did. So,
well, I understand. I know what's going on. In the second one, he had put on that fake hair and was Jason Methencamp.
He did look like a meth something, I'll tell you that much. That's awesome. But,
that was Cousin Jason.
Yeah. We need to get him on the next Pink Flamingo, whatever. Pink Flamingos Trailer Park Players.
Yeah, he'll fit right in. He'd be your local tow truck driver or something like that.
That could be pretty
I have one thing to add to this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Go for it.
There's one person that I think was better off dead.
Shelley.
No. It was the guy at the beginning, the store owner.
That guy.
If I would have had his wife, I probably would have wanted Jason to kill me.
Yeah, that was a mercy killing.
Yeah, like this 50-year-old guy and his 19-year-old wife in there that's got her hair in curls trying to make her look like she's old. That could have been his daughter. Let's just put that out there right now.
Right. So here's my note. Here's my note on that scene. That damn 80s music, Edna and Harold, I think I'd welcome death.
Oh, God, yeah.
Do any of y'all remember the ingredients when he ate feeding the fish?
Yeah, day fly eggs.
It was
They play.
yeah.
Every time
remember
I
that
feed
since
my
I
fish
first
here
saw
at the
that
house,
movie.
I think about that. Every
But
time
now-
I feed my fish.
So, okay, at the first part of this movie is a lot slower than what the I guess the third act is. Okay, so that last 30 minutes, he probably killed 8 or 9 people, but he didn't kill a whole lot in the first. Now, they really amped up the stalking part, especially with the first couple of scenes where he's walking around the laundry. Now, I thought it was creepy. You've got the wind going, you got the laundry kind of going. It reminds me of whenever Laurie saw Michael Myers standing in her neighbor's backyard, standing there with the sheets. It kind of gave me that vibe. And it started to do away with the whole seeing through the killer's eyes. And now it's kind of like an over-the-shoulder thing, With part 1, you saw only through the killer's eyes because they didn't want to reveal that it was the mom just yet until the end, right? So then in part 2, when Jason actually comes onto the scene, you've got a lot of shots of his feet and his legs, and it's just kind of like he's looking down, and you still get the view from his eyes. But now in this one, I guess because we have already established that Jason is the main antagonist, it's a lot of over-the-shoulder work, and now you can see him kind of lurking. Okay, so there was like 2 or 3 scenes where somebody would see him just happen to go into the barn, right? So then, of course, their curiosity is piqued. Now they're going to go check out what's in the barn. A lot of different things like that. And I thought with as slow as what it was moving, it still had some really good, stalking type scenes. I appreciated that.
Yeah, they actually filmed this. Go ahead, buddy.
You would have thought that, if you see all those people going in the barn and nobody came out, you might not go in the barn.
Right.
Yeah, everybody kept going in the barn and dying, man.
Yeah.
I think, was there 4 deaths? 5 counting Jason, I guess. 5 deaths in that barn.
Yeah, everybody died in that barn just about.
Yeah.
It was like half the
I got another thing. I want to add.
Go ahead.
They must have designed that set with cardboard because, when she was trying to, they were in the cabin and she was trying to open that one door, and you see the whole wall moving, and then the barn doors. The barn doors look like they were made out of 1/8-inch plywood.
Yeah.
They flexed and.
It's funny you said that though, because the house and the barn were actually built for the movie. Like that wasn't just a house that was there and a barn that was there. They built that house and they built that barn specifically for this movie, and it was still standing. I think in 2006 the house burnt down, and I think here recently a storm took out the barn or something like that. But yeah, they lasted up until just here recently.
Well, they did something similar in part 4. They had 2 main houses that was in part 4, and where all the kids were at that were partying and all that. That was actually built specifically for that movie.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty
Something
cool.
else I found interesting about the whole thing. The first one was in 1980, the second one was in 1981, and the third one was in 1982. They were just pumping these things out, man.
Yeah,
One
they
right after
were,
another.
because they were making money. They weren't ever supposed to make anything beyond the first one. That's why they killed the mom at the end. They weren't supposed to make anything. And then it ended up bringing in money, and they were like, well, we can't not make another one. This is making too much money. So
Tony, what do you think was the worst kill?
Worst kill, yeah.
Probably the handstand. That had to be bad. The handstand.
That was cringy to me. Yeah, I agree.
That was a little bit. They thought about that one for a while. And the head thing where the guy gets his head squashed.
Yeah. I bet that's how that eyeball ended up in that old dude's hand at the first there. Jason put the squeeze on somebody else.
Talking about that dude at the first, did you know that he was in Back to the Future? He was the old man that was laying on the homeless guy at the end, where he was laying on
the bench.
The bench, yeah.
Well, he was sleeping out in the middle of the road on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, what kind of dude sleeps in the middle of the road with an eyeball? I mean, y'all brought that up earlier. I mean, think about that. That's probably the creepiest thing in the whole freaking movie. Is you got just some dude going, "Hey, I found an eyeball. I'm going to go sleep with it in the middle of the road."
Yeah, and Chris is driving the van, and she don't even see him. Debbie has to reach over and say, "Hey, there's somebody in the road." She had to say that before she'd even stop. I'm like, how do you not see an old man sleeping in the middle of the road?
Is she still thinking about them dead bodies that they're bringing out of that gas station back there?
Red flag. Maybe I don't need to go camping this weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Am I the only one that thought, probably the best part of the movie was the van? Because I would love to have that van.
That van was pimped, son. I agree totally. With a reserve tank, man. Golly, bum. So, I would drive that van today.
I don't know if you remember this, Daniel, but do you remember the van that we used to have when I was little? That white van with the blue stripe on it?
No, I don't remember it.
Okay. All right. So my dad, again, poor white trash. Y'all have heard the story, right? My dad he bought a van, an old work van from the cable company, and it was a white van, like that model of van. It was just a white work van. It had a blue stripe on it. Well, the blue stripe had said, Tony knows. Tony's seen pictures of it, okay? And it had Athens Cable TV. Well, my dad went in there and tried to get the words Athens Cable TV also. You can still see in ghost letters Athens Cable TV, right? So we would ride around town, okay? In the back of this work van, no seats. Just the empty work van, and so we were complaining about it being hot. So it was me, my sister, Michelle, and my brother Andy. We're three little redneck white trash kids. We'd be riding around town in this thing, sweating our asses off. So we're like, "Dad, it's hot." Well, we didn't have freaking air conditioning, so he would open up the side door. We'd be just driving through town with those kids there. So no lie, you could ask Tony Howard.
That's awesome.
Tony Howard.
That is awesome.
Michelle sitting here beside me saying, "Yes, we did. Yes, we did."
Then we were like, well, hang on a second. We could fall out. We're 9, 10, 8-year-old kids. We can fall out of this damn van, right?
Well,
so he puts rope in it.
Just pulled over and got you,
Right. So he puts rope in it. So we tied ourselves into the van, right? We were driving around town with the side door of this freaking van open. I still have freaking nightmares. I took 17 years of therapy because of this damn van, right? So look, then one day I fall in love with Ellen. Ellen is the most beautiful girl in school, right? And it's like I'm in middle school, right?
I thought you were talking about Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, no, hell no. So we're driving through town, and I'm like, "Please, God, please, if you exist, don't let me see Ellen." We pull up, we come down the hill there at Depot Hill, right? We stop at that red light. I look over, and Ellen and her parents pull up beside me. She just looks over at me, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" No.
Did you have a rope tied around you, man?
I had a rope tied around me. I'm sitting in the back of that dumbass van. Okay, so now hang on. It gets worse. So it got to the point that, we're like, "Screw it, Dad. We're not getting back in this van anymore." I mean, we just had a full-on revolt, right? So he goes over. So Tony, you can ask Shell. He goes over to I forget who they were, but anyway, so friends of Mom and Dad, and they're gone all freaking day, right? They come home, sun's getting ready to go down. My dad and my mom jump out of the van, and they're beaming. They're happy. They go, "We fixed the van problem." I was okay, what happened? He slides it open. It's got gold shag in it, and they had built a freaking place to sit, and they had paneled it. There was freaking 1970s paneling on the freaking wall, and then there was a picture of a deer in the woods.
Yes, baby.
Tony, put Michelle on and tell her that's true story, people. It's true story.
God, that's the greatest story I've ever heard in my life, man.
That is awesome.
I don't want this van.
That's what I'm talking about.
What'd you say, John?
Listen, hold on. Alan did not have to take his freaking driver's test in that van either.
My God.
It did not have seatbelt. I thought the shag was green.
It might have been, but it was shag carpet all in that thing except for the paneling right there on that one side.
Oh, it was awful. And I had to take my freaking driver's test in that stupid van.
That is awesome. That's what I'm talking about right there.
So now imagine this. Imagine this. They did it because, we're tired of you people being embarrassed. We still drove around town with the freaking side door open, and now it looked like John Travolta's Love Shack in there. So you're like,
so before you pimped your ride there, could you imagine the guy sitting at the red light and they look over and the side of this van is open? You got 3 kids tied up, no seats. It's like, wait a minute. Do I need to call the police?
And what does that say?
My favorite thing ever, though, is our grandparents on Dad's side lived way out in the boonies, and it was gravel road, and it was freaking hot, and you would have that door open and get gravel and dust and everything all in your mouth, all in your hair.
Dude, that's fantastic. True. And my dad would fly down that little gravel road, and there'd be, gravel popping up in there like a 22 shell, man. You're ducking. We had PTSD, and I'm surprised I had any girlfriends in high school.
You did.
I'm serious. Well, okay, that's true.
Thank you, Michelle. That's
awesome.
Wow. Thank you.
So I know. When I tell some of these stories to John, so Corky and you and Daniel and you guys, I tell some of these stories to John and Chris, and I know they think I'm full of crap. But right here tonight, you heard it. It's true.
Truth is out. I don't see how you don't have to. You got to buy a van like that and recreate that, man. That's just too cool to not have in real life.
It sounds like some kind of rite of passage. I mean, everybody needs to have a van experience like this at some point in their lives.
God damn. Dude, the police would shoot at you now if you went down the road and something like that.
Right. I was driving down the road the other day, and I saw a van that was very similar to that one. And we have kind of a running joke in the family. If we ever see a van just like it, because occasionally you'll see one, an old 70s work van, and we will send a picture of it and, make comments like PTSD or whatever. And it hit me, Chris and John. I was driving down the road, and I'm like, that's a Nevermore Hollows van. Why have I not written about that yet?
Yeah. You got to write about that. Yeah.
No.
Got to put it in there.
And it's got to have that shag carpet in it. I can tell you that.
Golly bum. Where would you even get some shag carpet at these days? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some of that fringe that goes around the windows, around the top.
Yeah. We get the shag carpet at Tony's house. Tony keeps everything from the 70s.
Carpet's very expensive.
It probably really is.
About Friday the 13th. I don't remember how we got on this.
Yeah.
I actually started this with the van
because
comment.
The van is so cool.
There's
the van
no telling.
is so cool. But she was actually going to hit Jason. Jason had to duck out of the way. He had to dive out of the way. I thought that was cool when I was a kid too.
Yeah, and then mag wheels on that van too. I forgot about that.
And we were.
I'll say this about the van, then we can move on. But the coolest thing I ever thought about that van was the fact that it had a reserve tank. Was that a real thing, or is that just something they put in there?
Like my grandparents had a van that had 2 tanks.
Did it really?
Yeah, it really did. Of course, gas was only about 5 cents a gallon back then too.
What about the Tommy Chong guy that was in that? The guy, the pothead, the Tommy Chong guy. I know his wife was Chili. What y'all think about him?
Yeah. So that's another guy.
Chili and Chuck, that was his name.
Chuck.
That's another guy that's going to go to the outhouse and not wipe. If you noticed, if you saw that in there, and you had I guess you could say that was the original demon scene, where from part 5 where he's shaking the outhouse. So this is part 3, so this is before he gets demon.
Don't get me started on that demon scene, son. Just don't get me started.
But he's sitting there,
Yeah. Well, see, and that's something else that Michelle and I can speak to. Down there at my granddad's that she was talking about, they didn't have plumbing. They had an outhouse, and so many nights I would have to go to the bathroom, and I go, man, I'm going to get killed by something out here. So when I was older and I saw that scene, I was thinking about all those times I had to use that stupid outhouse.
And the outhouse had shag carpeting and paneling inside.
Had a big picture of big deer.
When you had to tie yourself to the seat?
Where did
Yes,
y'all
I'm
put the
telling-
picture of the deer at? Is it on the ceiling or what was it?
No, it was so imagine you slide open the door and you see all that the shag, even the little place they built like a couch that had shag, okay? And that's where the ropes they attached the ropes to the damn freaking couch right behind the couch.
After all the
It's the
renovations, you
freaking
still have the
paneling,
ropes?
and right there in all its redneck majesty is that damn deer painting.
I'm just trying to think of the train of thought with that. It was like, man, you know what? Let's put this deer picture in there.
You know
man.
what
That'll
this
set
man
it
needs?
off.
This needs a big
The
ass
kids
picture
won't
of a
be
deer.
embarrassed at all now.
Let's make this van a home. That's what makes it homey. The deer-
Golly bum, that is. I'm
Hey,
trying to picture
awful.
that thing in my head, man. I'm going to try to get AI to draw that tonight. I've got to do something with it. Okay.
Yes, Alan, I'm going to draw it. Yes, I will draw it.
Okay, I want to break down the final scene here, man, and we'll go on and rate this movie. But I told you guys this movie was one of my favorite, and it is. But now that we're talking about it, I'm kind of picking it apart. But that's okay. The final scene, you got Chris. She takes out Jason, but I guess it's like a dream scene or something like that. She's, the whole typical. She's in the boat, floating in the water and all that good stuff. And in this movie, Jason's mom comes out of the water and grabs her. Now, keep in mind, Chris ain't never seen Jason's mom. So how does she dream about somebody she doesn't even know trying to grab her out of the water? When I watched this the other night, I didn't sit right with me because Chris should have had no idea who Jason's mom was. Yet she dreamed about her or whatever. You know the scene I'm talking about.
Well,
so what's your guys' take on that?
My thing is, if she's the one that told the story about being mad at her parents running off in the woods, and okay, we've already talked about how that didn't make sense,
right?
But so maybe if we're supposed to suspend our disbelief and say that really happened, maybe he took her back and she saw the head.
Yeah, and she just maybe forgot about it or something,
You could
PTSD
think
or
about
something like that.
Or you could say that she heard about the story of Jason's mom killing people, and so she just imagined, this lady that was in the...
Yeah, I can see that. All right, I'll take that, Brett. I'll take that.
It was a well-known thing in the area.
Yeah,
everybody's got to know who Jason and Jason's mom are.
Definitely.
Pamela,
at that point,
Pamela,
you're going to know who, or at least know of Pamela Voorhees. That was only 5 years prior that even happened. And then you've got all the stuff that just happened the previous day. So yeah, I mean, it's plausible.
Yeah, we can go with that. It didn't make no sense to me, but I guess in the 80s, you didn't have to make no sense when you're putting out a Friday the 13th.
Well, of course, it's like Alan was saying, this is the third movie. So we already understood why the first two happened. Well, in the third movie here, you don't really understand why anything's happening. He's just still killing people, but you still needed to have that gotcha moment at the end of the movie like the other two prequels had. Or the other two.
He disappeared.
He gone.
He's left the building.
Okay, well, while he's having technical difficulties, I wanted to bring something up, though. That final scene with her in the boat and Jason's mom dragging her under, I do have to say, when she sees Jason in the house window, the first time I saw that, I thought that was pretty freaky. I mean, that has to be one of the best flashbacks or dream sequences or whatever of the movies. You see him smiling in the window and running down, and she can't escape because the canoe is stuck by the log. And you can just feel, that's one thing I liked about this movie, is they were able to build the suspense sequences a lot better than the others, I felt like. There was a couple of times where you can feel the suspense of like, oh, come on, you can do it, and just like a snap of your finger, they can't escape. So anyway, I thought that dream sequence was pretty cool.
Well, another cool part about the dream sequence is the fact that it's daylight. I always think that it's almost scarier in horror movies whenever things like that happen in broad daylight. Like you had the girl that was being chased in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She actually makes it back out onto the porch. Sun is bright, shining, everything. It's not dark, it's not creepy or eerie, but he grabs her and takes her back into the house anyway. Things like that happen in the daylight.
That's a fantastic scene.
things like that happen in the daylight in these movies are just as creepy as the stuff that's happening,
Sometimes creepy.
Yeah, I think so.
I think anyhow. Yeah. All right, guys, that's the movie. So have we explained to you how we rank these things? I think Daniel sent it out. I don't know if everybody got it or not. If you didn't get it, you can just rank it 1 to 10, and that'll be fine. As Daniel leaves us again.
I dropped it into
real quick
the text for everybody.
Yeah, Brent, go ahead and tell everybody how we rank these movies.
Okay, so we rank these movies. This is how we do for all of our movie reviews. We have 5 criteria. We rate them each 1 through 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. So the first one is cultural significance. The second one is special effects. The third is music. The fourth is symbolism. And the fifth is enjoyment. Once you get your 5 scores, we average those out, and that's going to be your overall score for this movie.
All right. Brent, since you explained it to everybody, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, I'll kick it off.
All right. Sounds good.
So, unlike, I'm sure you guys, or at least I know Dad and Corky, I did not grow up with this movie. I didn't grow up with any of the Friday the 13th movies. The first time I've seen any of them that I can remember, it's like 5 or 6 years ago.
But
So I don't have that special, none of these movies have that special place in my heart like some of the other movies that we've talked about. So I'm not going to gloss over some of the bad parts of the movie but I will say with this third one, you can already tell the pattern that these movies are going for already.
Yeah.
And so if you don't like that, if you don't have that special place in your heart for Friday the 13th, they can start to get old really fast. I'm not saying that's necessarily happening to me. I love the movies, or at least I think they're fun, but you can definitely see the pattern that they're going for. And you can tell, I was telling Nicole, my wife, as we were watching, I mean, you could pretty much fast forward half of the movie if you know what's going on. A group of people go to an abandoned place out in the woods. They're going to hook up. There's going to be that first half of the movie is all going to be Jason watching through the windows as the friends hook up with each other. And then the last 30 minutes is going to be Jason killing people off. And then you're going to have the final girl at the end. But with this movie, cultural significance, I give an 8 because of the mask. Everyone knows the Jason mask. This is the first movie that you get the Jason mask. You have to give it a very high score just because of that. Special effects, I give it a 5 because on the one hand, you have some really bad special effects in here. Like the guy that gets his arm chopped off, the biker guy. That's one of the cheesiest things I've ever seen in my life. But at the same time, you do get some pretty cool ones, like the arrow coming into the guy's eye. And I do like the early 3D. Like, you can tell what they're going for. And so I thought those were pretty cool. So I averaged those out. I give it a 5. The music, it's just like the first two. I love the Friday the 13th theme song. That's a theme song you could have on Halloween time. So I give it a 6. Symbolism, I mean, at least with the second one, you could say there's some symbolism with like some of the therapy stuff going on with Jason's mom, things. I didn't really know how to, I give it a 5 just because, at least you could say that you've got the stuff going on with the trauma with the girl and Jason in the past, that sort of trauma. So I give it a 5. And then overall enjoyment. It's a good, fun movie, just like the others that we've watched that you can throw on in the background. You're not going to get bored, or at least I'm not bored. It's something fun to watch, so I give it a 7. And I believe that averages out to an overall score of a 6.
All right, Brent gives it a 6.
Well, Brent, that's actually better than what I figured that you would give it. That's pretty
Brent's
good.
a hater.
But Friday 13th Part 3, cultural significance for me. So this is where I'm kind of biased because I grew up with it, right? So you're still in the heyday of the 80s slasher film. And just like what Brent already broke down, there's a formula. There's a format to this. And this fits right into, prime time, So cultural significance for me is going to be a 10 because this is a formula that is going to continue to be very thematic in horror movies for several years to come. So then symbolism, really the only symbolic thing about this one is Jason is now coming into his own. He's starting to develop the look that they give him. He got the iconic hockey mask, and that's really the big thing as far as anything symbolic. So I give it an 8 for that. The music, I've said this before, a Friday the 13th movie, and you listen to the score of it, you know what it is right off the bat. And the fact that it's so iconic like that, that's a 10 for me. The special effects, really it deserves a lower score, but I knew what they were going with. I love practical effects, okay? Don't get me wrong on CGI. CGI can do some really great in this movie. They put too much time and too much effort into it, especially for what 3D, was back then and is now. But I still give it an 8 because I really like the kills. I do think that they did some really good practical effects in it. And then my overall enjoyment, of course, is going to be a 10. This is one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. For a long time, I didn't rank this movie very high. For it's better, but over time, there's been certain things about this movie that I've gone back and rewatched and whatnot that I really enjoy. So that's a 10 for me, and then my total after averaging all that is a 9.2. So that's, I believe, the highest score that I've given a Friday the 13th.
All right, now we'll round that up to 10, right? Or 9. How are we going to do that? Anyhow.
We'll round it down to 9.
Round it down to 9. Now, Chris, you want to grace us with your beautiful, ranking of this movie.
Well, I didn't get a chance to do all the ranking stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can just throw out a 1 to 10, bud. It's up to you.
Well, I mean, this is it's Friday the 13th. And yeah, I agree that this is when Jason gets his hockey mask, and that's when he becomes this iconic character. The special effects, practical effects are always better, especially in horror movies. My favorite Friday the 13th is part 2, just for the fact that they have a guy in a wheelchair in a camp in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and he takes that machete to the face. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there's no ramps anywhere. So how did he get in the house?
Good point. I never thought about that. Good point.
Yeah, it's this is stuff that my church youth group used to go to see together. Okay, so Friday 13th is just one of those. It's a great movie. My wife and I always enjoy watching them, and because they're just, it's fun. You don't have to think about nothing. You don't have to do anything. It's a popcorn movie. You go in, you sit down, you have a good time, and then you get up. But yeah, I'd give it it's got to have a 7.
Solid 7.
Friday 13th,
Yeah. Solid 7 from Chris.
You got, bud.
I'll say an overall rating of about a 7. The biggest part, like everybody else has said, the mask. I mean, that's the beginning of Jason, in my opinion. It's the mask. The music, it's been the same through every one of them. It's still good music. It still works. But like I said, overall, I'm going to go with about a 7. Probably about a 7.
Yeah.
Let's let Alan rank it.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
In the middle of it.
Okay, no, it's fine. It's
Technical
fine.
difficulties on. I told you his internet's got to be garbage, man. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's got to be his internet. So I'd say cultural significance 10 for the mask. Symbolism, I gave it a 1. I didn't feel like there's a whole lot of symbolism in it. Special effects 5. I love practical effects. Hate CGI.
Absolutely.
And these were middle of the road overall, but there were some highlights, like with the spear to the eye and squishing the guy's eye out. There's a lot of eye stuff here. So I'll give that a 5. Music 7, because I felt that it at the right times it built the moment. And then overall enjoyment, in October I would have said 1, last night a 5. So that gives us an overall 5.6 to round up to 6.
Awesome. So you give it a 6, Al. Okay. John, you're up, buddy.
Basically, after listening to Alan, we have basically the same score. I gave it a 10 for the cultural significance because of the mask. They defined That's the most iconic part of the movie. Special effects, middle of the road. I gave it a 5 because I didn't like the 3D stuff. I think the 3D stuff ruined the practical effects in my eyes. The practical effects raised that score up, basically. They were holding the water. Music, I go 7, just because there wasn't anything that really stood out. Like everybody has said, the Friday the 13th, soundtrack is very, you know it. You know what it is. Symbolism, I give it a 3. Like Alan said, I didn't really see anything symbolic with it because I gave all those points for the hockey mask to the cultural significance. For all, like I said in the beginning, man, this thing's a turd. And the only reason I'm giving this a 4 is for the hockey mask.
Right, that hockey mask was probably the most iconic thing of the whole movie. So what was your 1 out of 10? What'd you give it
overall?
Yeah,
a 4.
A 4. Oh, okay. All right. So that leaves me. Of course, you can tell by behind me, I'm a big Friday the 13th fan. So for me, I'll just cut out the middleman here, and I won't go through everything. But I give this movie a solid 8 out of 10 because that's just how I am. I love Jason, love these movies. Let's love 80s slasher movies altogether, but absolutely love Jason. So that's it, man. I think that Brent, what's that give the movie as an average? Did you add all that stuff up?
No, I couldn't. I know the 4 is going to bring it down. It seems like the average is going to be somewhere around 5 or 6.
All right, so we'll just go ahead and give it a 6.5.
Throw mine out because I'm not going to be here every week.
All right, man. Well, hey, that's Friday the 13th, part 3 from us, man. I appreciate everybody joining us. But right now, before we leave, Alan, you guys have a podcast called Nevermore Hollows. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your podcast?
Thank you. We write and record horror stories about a little town called Nevermore Hollows, all kinds of unusual monsters, crazy characters that you can get behind and enjoy. It's stories about good and evil, but you're not going to hear horror stories like anywhere else, like what we tell. And we got brother Chris Goins as part of it, and John Fike is part of the show now. And John has his own show.
Yeah. John, tell us a little bit about what's it called? Myth, Monsters and Mullets. Yeah, that sounds like an East Tennessee show if I ever heard one, but you're not from here. So tell us a little bit about that, man.
Straight from Indiana. Yeah, I have your typical paranormal encounter show. People call in, give their encounter stories, and we have a conversation about it. The one thing I do feel is different about mine is it's not an interview. It's just a conversation. Very, very laid back. And then, of course, I am blessed to be a part of Nevermore Hollows.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Well,
and if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys, I'm telling you, if you've got anything you want to share like that, John's a great conversationalist. You're going to feel really good on his show.
Yeah, I haven't listened to any of the shows yet, John, but I'm anxious to listen to them because that sounds right up my alley. So, but I appreciate all you guys coming on to the show tonight and helping us out, man, because we're just getting this little show started, and we just appreciate the help, man. I've had a good time learning about your van, Alan, and all that good stuff. And, I think this is going to be one of our best shows once we get it posted. So I appreciate you guys.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on.
And I will post a link. I'll put a link to both of those shows in our bios and in our, stuff like that. So make sure and click on those shows and give them a Until next week, we will see you then. Bye, everybody.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. You got it all. Tune in, turn up, come by with us, y'all. So remember.